AEW Full Gear this past Saturday night. AEW doing a Saturday night pay-per-view. All around a good pay-per-view. 4 hours, but not too long. It did end before midnight, luckily, on the East Coast. I kind of regret not going to it. It looked like a good event. Tickets, unlike Survivor Series this upcoming week, were in the affordable range, as they have been for AEW, except for a few instances here and there. But what do you think your match of the night was? Let's just go there with AEW Full Gear.
Oh man, I mean, there's so many. Honestly, there's so many great moments from the show. I mean, obviously, the easy answer is probably the moment where the match where obviously it was MJF winning the championship over Mox with the assist from William Regal, who slides in the brass knucks, and then MJF just knocks Moxley out cold for the 1, 2, 3. But I'm gonna go in a different direction, and I called it last week. That was the match I was looking forward to, was the trios match. I thought the Elite looked great. I know we were texting during the show, and I said, I got to tell you, I mean, they all looked good. Especially our Winged Angel boy. He looked fantastic. Kenny Omega I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, this time off was great for Kenny Omega. He not only he got a little bit healthier, but it looked like he looks like he's been really hitting the weights and hitting the gym more than ever. I mean, his physique, I haven't seen him look this good, in some time. I mean, he's always had a decent physique, but I feel like he seems like he's more jacked than he has been in a long time. And obviously the Bucks are the Bucks. I'm not the biggest Bucks fan, but I do respect what they do, and with the Elite coming back and putting on a good show, I did like the finish. I just enjoyed the finish. Well, I mean,
finish is one way to put it, because there is the finish for this feud that just began is a long way off. This was after,
the best of 7.
Yes. After the Elite lost the match, which I don't think a lot of us saw coming, we found out that this is going to be a best of 7, which is continuing on Dynamite. So even if you don't hear this till post Dynamite, good news is it's still not old, regardless who wins that, because we're probably going to get a full 7, at least 4, obviously. What do you make of them taking this, I guess, the Elite coming back and immediately putting them in this 7-match feud, the span over like the next month with one, trios team?
I don't mind it. I just, and that's the thing. I mean, Young Bucks, Omega, I mean, they're true professionals. They've been in the business a long time, so I'm not worried about them, from a match perspective, because they, as I'll steal a phrase from Sheamus and his Brawling Brutes, they put in banger after banger after banger. I mean, they're always going to put on pretty good matches. And Death Triangle, I just think they are absolutely fantastic. I think they're just a great trio, I guess. But I just think the issue that I may have with this, and we'll see what they'll do to keep it fresh, is it could get stale, and that's my only concern. Is it could get stale if they're going to just have 6 more of these. I mean, I like these matches, don't get me wrong, but it's not always good booking if you're just having match after match after match after match with the same opponent. Granted, these 6 make magic. I'll tell you this. I was kind of caught off guard. I thought the Elite would come back and win, but I'm okay with the finish. I thought Rey Fenix. I think when he was up there for Kenny's One-Winged Angel, and he's been torn to use, bend the rules, break the rules, so to speak, even though Pac has been kind of, come on, man, you gotta have underhanded tactics, you gotta do these things. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, I'm caught in a position where I'm going to get the 1, 2, 3 on me. Absolutely not. And then before the One-Winged Angel was hit, he takes care of business, and he gets the pinfall, for the Death Triangle. I thought that, to me, was the match of the night. You could also go with the steel cage match that started the night with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. That was a hell of a match. I thought that was a great way to kick off the main show. From start to finish. I mean, you could pick a multitude of matches, and I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you. I think it was just a hell of a night.
No, and with that trios match, it is not running up the hill. Stranger Things popularity, but I think that Kansas is probably the band is pretty happy with the Elite there, helping put one of their songs, "Carry On My Wayward Son," back on the charts after like 40 something years. I think they even just released the other day on Twitter or social media that it was like one of its 40th anniversaries since the release of that song, and like I don't know if they know why it's back on the charts and why it's, the amount of iTunes sales, I guess, are going up. I mean, I'm not saying, like I said, it's not the popularity of like Stranger Things or something like that, but clearly, I mean, they saw an uptick following Saturday's pay per view
I
with a
gotta, you know
song
what,
that was probably
I gotta add
steady
to
for
that.
many decades.
I'll add to that because I don't know what kind of money Tony Khan's throwing around. I mean, he's got plenty of it. We all obviously know that he's a billionaire for God's sake. But I'm wondering, like, how is he cutting these deals with the bands like Kansas, Jungle Boy's theme song? I can't remember the name of the artist of that one. But I know it's Tarzan Boy is the name of the song from the
Mhm.
'80s, which I actually heard at the radio station here locally in Syracuse, years ago. So very familiar with that tune. And then it's just like these multitude of songs that and John Moxley's Wild Thing.
You wonder though, because of their age, if they have if there's some sort of way that they're
well, you got to pay
in
for it. You have to
the
pay for the
sphere.
rights.
You got to pay for it, but
Yeah.
it's in the world where it's maybe not as expensive as if I wanted some brand new top of the chart song. I think it's a little more affordable, especially like the Kansas song. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're happy to get money. They're not
Well,
probably saying 50
I mean,
million or bust.
remember Daniel Brian Danielson when he was at Ring of Honor, that his main song, they couldn't get that song for AEW because the band would just not, they wouldn't budge. Their number was too high, and Tony Khan said no. So they just had to make their own version of it. And honestly, I think it worked out better this way because I think Brian Danielson's, his theme, it's like the beginning of what we were used to in WWE, but it's a new twist that's kind of got a cool flavor to it. So it kind of worked out where it's not the but it's still I think it's still a pretty good entrance theme for Brian Danielson.
And I think when it comes to anybody using songs back in the Ring of Honor days, I don't necessarily know how much they paid for them as much as they probably just used them and said, hey, if they come to us, we'll just stop using it. But hopefully they just don't even know we're using
Yeah.
it, kind of thing. Like if you go on the indies, I mean, they just use things like a good one was I didn't understand it at all. Is that when I went to a recent indie show and I was working closely with the guy who does sound, that's the reason I was at the show. But Fandango didn't want his WWE theme song used. He wanted "Loser" by Beck. Because he's, as we've seen recently, he's trying to get out on his own. He's trying to, make a splash and impact. He's trying to be Dirty Dango and do his own thing. But if you're going to have an alternative song than the one that WWE used, I think it's best to come up with your own song and kind of have
Yeah.
something that's not trademarked because clearly, first off, when he hit the ring, no one knew when the song hit. No one knew who was coming out. They were all very confused until he came out. But then he can't really be tied to that song for much longer because when he gets to AEWs or Impact Wrestling, they won't be able to use it. So don't make yourself synonymous with this name. That's why I never understood on the indies why people get synonymous with either copyrighted music or they get some sort of gimmick that's a parody of something that some bigger star is doing, and it's like that like you don't want to get popular doing this
No.
because if this is your claim to fame that's going to get you in WWE, it's not going to work because you'd have to change it. It'd be stupid for Brian Danielson to literally have a gimmick in ROH and New Japan that is trying to get him noticed, but clearly they won't ever get him noticed because it's a copy of Stone Cold Steve Austin or something like that. So that'd be kind of fruitless to do that.
I meant to add too with Brian Danielson's song. It's by Europe. I had to
Yes,
think
Final
about it for a
Countdown.
second. And
Yes,
then Tarzan Boy is Baltimore. I just wanted to clean those up. So
there's a band called
Baltimore is a name you
Baltimore.
haven't heard in a long time.
I haven't
Baltimore, that's the name.
Baltimora.
Yeah, Baltimore. Yep.
That is definitely a name I haven't heard in a long time because I don't
Yeah.
know if I've ever heard it. Soraya at WW Full Gear, as I know you mentioned, we were talking off air, on Saturday night, looked pretty good for her first match back with Britt
Yeah.
Baker. Another match that I thought was an overall interesting match. It wasn't a squash match by any means, but Jade Cargill beat Nyla Rose with her Hulk appearance that she came out as That's what she was. She going for like She-Hulk or something. I mean,
I
that's
think
what
it
I
was
kind of
like
got.
I forget the name of the character, like Thundercat or something,
Yeah, I saw that
something
part
like
too, and
that.
I wasn't that familiar. It reminded me of Hulk, like with like the
But
colors.
she did come out and say she's not going to wear that attire again because she thought it was a little too revealing, I guess. So she came out on Twitter later
I
on.
wasn't a big fan of it. It made her look a little like, I mean, I understand that she doesn't care much about the femininity aspect, but it definitely didn't like help that. I mean, because it was like painted her legs like a solid color. So it was a little unique, but either way, she looked good in the match.
Yeah,
And got another victory. But as for the AEW interim, whatever you want to call it, AEW Women's Champion, the new one, Jamie Hayter, beat Tony Storm in one of the later matches on the night, one of, I guess you would say, semi-main events, if you will,
yeah.
and became the new AEW Women's Champion from her days of NXT UK to now the top of the AEW Women's charts. You saw that coming. I didn't necessarily see it coming because, frankly, in the AEW Women's division, I am more focused on like the Jade Cargills and the Britt Bakers
Yeah.
and those. So the actual people who are holding the belts right now seem to be, I don't want to say lesser talent, they're not, but lesser
No.
names.
No, I agree. Then yeah, I mean, be honest with you. I mean, Jamie Hayter. I mean, if you haven't been following the game or you're not like you're more of an average fan, you might not really follow her too much.
Hmm.
But I mean, she has earned her stripes through the years, and I thought it was a quality match with her and Storm. I thought it was a good way to put her over. And I think it's a well-deserved title change. I do like the fact that AEW did multiple title changes on the evening, but they also kept like Chris Jericho in his position for the Ring of Honor Championship. So it was a good balance. I thought they did a really good job overall. And like we talked about last week, Jade Cargill, nothing against Nyla Rose and everything that we talked about last week. I just think you got to have somebody like you said, unexpected, maybe like a Jamie Hayter, like for example, like somebody that comes out of the blue that you're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Hmm.
Like Nyla Rose to me, I always felt like, okay, if she beats Jade Cargill, it's like, okay, it doesn't really surprise me. So I'm glad it played out the way that it did. And I'm wondering if AEW is going to go in the direction of like maybe like a Saraya. Maybe she takes that belt from Jade Cargill someday. I mean, who the heck knows at this point? I will say though, Saraya looked pretty. Again, she looked pretty good against Britt Baker, and obviously Britt Baker's a hell of a competitor. So I mean, these women's matches I thought were pretty darn good.
Yeah, and overall it was a good show. Obviously, the tag team match, the Acclaim and Keith Lee and Swerve there, good match. Or as Max Caster said, Keith Lee, what did he say? It was from The Blind Side,
Yeah.
the movie The Blind Side there in his rap. That was a good match. Again, I don't want to say the pay per view was like too long, but I think I turned it back on because I was commuting and I turned it on at like 10:50 or 10:45 ish. And when they were coming out, they're like another championship match, and we still got three more on the night. And I just feel like at 10:45 to say we still have like three or four more matches on the card is just like that's saying
Yeah.
a lot at 10:45 Eastern time. You know what I mean? Like because I'm just
Yeah.
so used to and in general just that we didn't just start watching the show. It's not like it just started at 9 o'clock or something like that. It's like we're 2.5 hours in. I'm turning it on like after a full night out, like thinking I'm just gonna catch the end of it, and there's still like a lot of show left.
Yeah, that's the problem that I had because I didn't stay up and watch the whole show live. I ended up going back and watching it later on, like
Mm.
the last few matches. I was just I was dozing off because, like you said, there were still a few matches when you're getting close to the 11 o'clock hour Eastern time, so at night. So it was to me, I was like, I got to get some sleep. So it was one of those things. As much as I I was tired, I didn't regret it though because I turn off all my notifications on social media because those things ruin every. I've learned over the years that stuff ruins everything. So I didn't even look at social media. I was able to get back in it the next day, and I was able to see MJF, for example, in all his glory. By the way, did you see the part where he went up and motorboated the fan? Did you see that?
I did. No, I did not see that.
Yeah, he walks up in his entrance, and a girl that was had big breast. He goes over. It looked like they were having a quick conversation. He just goes over and does the old wedding crashers motorboat
I hope that went
situation.
over well with his fiance who was in the crowd. I did see that she was
I'm
there.
wondering. I couldn't get I didn't get a good look at just I didn't see. I don't know what his MJF's girl looks like, so I don't know if that
I
was
don't
her.
think
I
it
don't
was her.
know.
I did see where she was just sitting in the typical stands.
Yeah.
So I'm not. If I didn't see it, I'm gonna guess based off where she was located, and not like ringside, like right on the rampway or anything. So I'm gonna guess it was probably not her.
I'm
Uh,
gonna guess that, and I'm also gonna guess that maybe he said, "Hey, I'm gonna do this for the show." Like maybe it was somebody they already picked out of the crowd that was like, "All right,
well, I really hope in this day and age. Unfortunately, we're not in the Attitude Era where things are a little bit different than they are now.
yeah." Well,
In
back in
this
the
day and
day,
age, I think you definitely got to get that
yeah,
consent.
yeah. I mean, back in the day, like I remember. I think it was Triple H. It was somebody with DX. Like they pointed to a girl in the audience on, I
Yeah,
think it was on one of the shows, and she just lifted her top up, and like you're not gonna see that
and
anymore.
Triple H told her to do it.
And she did it. She went,
I think she
whoop.
like lifted her top or something like that, and like had a bra on, and like Triple H is like, no, 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 the whole thing.
Yep, and then she
Like,
went.
yeah, you're not gonna see that.
No, no. So I would feel like a consent happened. They had to sign some sort of paperwork that was like, yeah, are you okay with this? And obviously, I would think MJF probably cleared it with his fiance because I don't know too many women that would be too thrilled with their significant other doing that to another woman. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up stuff about like the past, and I'm not saying we need to return exactly to that specific moment, but
Yeah.
being at Monday Night Raw this week during one of the commercial breaks on the TV screen, they put up like a throwback moment, and it was the beer truck incident that happened in Albany, New York, at the exact same arena, March of 1999. And literally seeing on the TV, this being a Monday Night Raw, and me being at Monday Night Raw, and like looking like I'm looking at something completely different. That would be like being at Yankee Stadium for Game 7 of the World Series, and then like looking at a clip of Game 7 of a previous World Series and being like, wait, is this supposed to be exactly this? Because Monday Night Raw, it's not like a pay-per-view. It's not like a clip from WrestleMania when it was here. Like, it's just another exactly what I'm at. And it was like night and day difference of seeing, like the crowd just going bananas, signs everywhere, everyone jumping up and down as if they just watched somebody hit like a half court game winning shot to send their team to the championship. Just like no piped in audio, the place going wild, while literally a whole crowd of people, which is not a completely full sold out stadium like it was probably then, just kind of like sitting there and watching as, nice and politely this clip of a time when Raw was the thing to be. And we're at Raw and we're just quietly watching this clip thinking like,
Yeah, it's a different era. I
what a
wish I
world.
wish we could
Yeah.
go back to those days a little bit. I mean, it was. I mean, I remember it so vividly. Like that's what we've always talked about this. That's what really got me into the business was like moments like that. So like, it's like how do you usher in like a new generation of fans? The Attitude Era. Look at all these fans now; they're our age. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the first ever wrestling show I went to was a Monday Night Raw in Albany, New York. And I can tell you if the Monday Night Raw that I went to this past week was the first ever wrestling show that I ever went to, I don't know if it would have been the same. I mean, I understand I looking at it through different eyes, being a kid versus being an adult, but just I look back at that day so fondly and like the feeling and like just the deafening sound in the arena. And I didn't really get that this past week. But staying with AEW, and I don't really get that either at AEW shows for the most part because I've only been
Yeah.
at Dynamites. But AEW, I will say, if we were to get back to it, they are probably a little bit closer than WWE. Obviously, everyone's singing along with Jericho when he comes out. People seeming to be a little more freer, I think, at AEW shows. They're always showing the crowd, like really getting into it more so at those shows. And the main event, MJF, John Moxley, surprised me. MJF, I did kind of say that it would be good if they did, and they did indeed put the championship on MJF. The first time he's been champion, and it seems like he's been carrying this company for a little while now. He's been like the Undertaker. He's been there, just not the champion. And you wonder, like, is that because the champion and MJF needed to be two separate people because they're both equally as big? Like MJF with the championship is like MJF with MJF. Uh,
No,
So
and that's the thing. MJF, I mean, I don't know if you saw, like, in addition to like obviously the big win, like there's two takeaways that I have. I mean, well, I should say one takeaway from the match and then one takeaway from the promo that he had in the press conference afterwards. That was like a 2-minute promo. But like what happens to the Blackpool Combat Club? I'm interested to see what happens there because I've seen reports that Brian Danielson is he's looking to wind it down as a full-time competitor. So I'm wondering what's going to happen there in the near future. So it's like his last big run. And then that promo that MJF caught, after the pay per view, they always do those press conferences.
yeah,
That was, I don't know if you saw that promo. It was like a 2-minute clip. Holy smokes! Like MJF, like that, like it was like Miz on what was it, Talking Smack against Daniel Bryan, but like amplified to like the 10th degree. Like he just ripped everybody apart. Like his character, it made, and that not only was the pay per view great, but that promo by MJF, it also like makes me like want to make sure like on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time, on TBS, that I'm tuning in right now because I'm making this appointment TV after such a great show and a great promo. I haven't felt this way about a Dynamite in a while, and I'm excited to see what happens this week.
let me just say, I think I might have said this before. I am not a fan of those post pay-per-view
I'm not either.
press conferences.
But
I just
it
feel
worked
like
out.
you're adding more to. It's like these are things that could be saved for Dynamite, obviously without the massive cursing, but they
Yeah.
could be saved, and that is the one positive in WWE, and it leaves you. Unlike other sports, when you'd watch WrestleMania or the Royal Rumble, it would just go off the air. Obviously, when you leave a football game, there's post-game show to listen to on the radio on the drive home. There's Monday morning court. There's like so many things in sports that add to it. But the thing about wrestling is you'd go to WrestleMania, you'd go to the Super Bowl of wrestling, and when the show ended, it ended. Like there was no like, and occasionally WWE toyed with like post-show things. But I used to kind of hate that. I used to kind of hate that there
I never
was.
watched them.
I used to kind of hate that, like a WrestleMania, for example, ended with nothing because again, I'm trying to treat this like the Super Bowl, and I'm treating this like it's a big thing, and I'm like it needs more, and it needs to be on the level with the other things. It needs like these post shows, it needs these wrap ups, and then I got thinking, no, you know what? That's kind of what makes it good. Is because it doesn't have these things. It makes me want to then tune into Monday Night Raw. And, that's kind of, and if you remember when the network first started, there was the Raw pre-show, the Raw post-show, obviously Talking Smack, all these things. I thought Talking Smack was all right, and it obviously still exists in some form. But I do like that when it comes to wrestling. I like that it cuts off. I like that Monday Night Raw, it ends. We don't find out any new information till next Monday night. It's a TV show. Sure, I like the sports aspect of it, but the TV show aspect of it where it leaves me hanging, I appreciate it more than I thought I did, especially now with like AEW and they're doing these post shows. And I realized, you know what? I like the idea. It makes it feel more big time that you have press and you got the media asking questions, and it makes it feel like, you're a post UFC fight, all that good stuff. You make it seem legit. But then the entertainment aspect of it, I think, yeah, no, I don't. I'm not a fan of it. I want to be left wanting more.
I'll be honest with you. I agree. I agree to your point, but I will say though, the way they executed the MJF situation, like the press conference afterwards, if they do kind of something more to that degree, I might be more apt to accept it more often. I just think it's MJF just being so much better than everybody else that he just knows the business. He's a hell of a wrestler. He's a great promo. I think part of it is just because MJF is must-see TV or just must-see everything. I mean, from Pete's sake, his tweets. I mean, he's crossing over and talking smack to pardon the pun there, talking smack to UFC's Paddy the Baddy. So I mean, he's in the news all the time, and it's good news because when people see, oh, who the heck's this MJF guy, they're tying it to the business that we both love. So I love the way MJF just keeps doing what he's supposed to be doing.